The Machiavellian mind, how to become mentally untouchable. There was a time when men believed that strength was born in the flesh, in swords, walls, and armies. Today, strength has shifted from muscle to mind, from the battlefield to the invisible arena of perception. And yet, the majority of humanity has grown weaker than ever, not because the world has become crueler, but because the mind has become gentler, easily pierced, easily persuaded, easily broken. We live in an age of fragility disguised as sensitivity, of weakness parading as virtue. People no longer collapse under the weight of war. They collapse under the weight of words. They fear silence more than lies, rejection more than dishonor, solitude more than ignorance. The modern mind, once a throne of thought, has become a cage of reaction. Every insult is a wound, every disappointment a tragedy. The average person does not live, they respond. They react to headlines, to trends, to opinions, to fears whispered by strangers on glowing screens. Machiavelli would not have recognized this world, yet he would have understood it perfectly. For in his time, as in ours, he saw one eternal truth. The one who cannot control himself will always be ruled by others. To rule others is rare. To rule oneself is divine. And so the Machiavellian mind begins not with domination, but with discipline, the art of controlling one's own reactions before commanding the world's. The untouchable mind does not seek comfort. It seeks control. It does not cry for fairness. It calculates advantage. It does not ask what is right or wrong in the eyes of the herd. It asks what is effective. To live as a Machiavellian thinker in the 21st century is to walk a lonely road, for the world worships feelings, while the Machiavellian worships clarity. The world kneels before comfort, while he kneels before strength. The world wants to be understood. He wants to understand. You will not find peace in softness. You will find only illusion. The mind, when left untrained, becomes its own tyrant, a ruler of chaos, commanding through fear and doubt, the first step toward becoming mentally untouchable. Therefore is rebellion, a rebellion against one's own weakness, not against the world, but against the noise that the world plants within you. You must look into yourself and say, my emotions are not my identity. My fears are not my masters. My peace is not a gift. It is a conquest. The war for your mind begins in silence. And silence, for most, is unbearable because it exposes the disorder within. But for those who dare to face it, it becomes a mirror where control begins to take form. The Machiavellian mind is not cruel. It is clear. It sees through the fog of sentiment that blinds others. It chooses calm when others collapse, strategy when others scream, and purpose when others pity themselves. In this clarity lies the first form of power, the power to see the world as it is, not as one wishes it to be. That sight alone separates the rulers of life from its victims. Part 2. The birth of the Machiavellian mind. Niccolò Machiavelli lived in a world of shifting loyalties, fragile alliances and ruthless ambition. Princes were overthrown by friends, trust was currency, and survival depended not on morality, but on mastery. He watched as good men were destroyed by their own goodness, and learned that to endure, one must be both lion and fox, strength wrapped in cunning. But what makes Machiavelli more than a political thinker is that his principles extend far beyond politics. They describe the anatomy of mental sovereignty, the art of ruling one's own mind in a world of manipulation. To be Machiavellian is not to be evil, it is to be awake, to understand that every smile may hide a motive, every compliment a calculation, every act of virtue a performance. It is not cynicism, it is lucidity. And lucidity is the highest form of intelligence, for it frees you from illusion. The Machiavellian mind is forged in 3 fires: awareness, detachment, and direction. Awareness gives sight, to see the invisible architecture of power beneath human behavior. Detachment gives distance, to step outside one's emotions and observe with calm precision. Direction gives will, to move not by impulse, but by deliberate choice. he who possesses these three commands not only others but himself. Most minds, however, remain enslaved by emotion. They are predictable, reactive, transparent. They reveal themselves through every complaint, every argument, every need for validation. Such a mind cannot hold power, for it leaks energy at every touch. Machiavelli's wisdom was not a manual for cruelty. It was a mirror held to human weakness. He understood that men are rarely as they appear, and that the first step toward mastery is to stop expecting them to be. Whoever desires constant success, he wrote, must change his conduct with the times. And so, the Machiavellian mind evolves like water, flowing, adapting, shaping itself around the obstacles of life without losing its essence. To become mentally untouchable, one must cultivate the same adaptability. You must learn to bend without breaking, to conceal strength behind composure, and to smile without surrender. Every thought must serve a purpose. Every silence must carry meaning. Every reaction must be chosen, not provoked. This is not deception. It is design. It is the discipline of the sovereign mind, a mind that knows when to speak, when to withdraw, when to fight, and when to wait. In a world where everyone seeks to express themselves, the Machiavellian seeks to understand himself. Expression is noise. Understanding is control. And control, above all, is the language of power. The mind, when trained in this art, becomes a fortress. Not impenetrable because it is hard, but because it is ordered. Every emotion has its place. Every impulse is examined. Every decision passes through the gates of reason. To be Machiavellian is to live as both observer and participant, to act while analyzing, to move while calculating, to feel without drowning. It is to walk through chaos untouched because you no longer belong to it. Your mind has risen above it, like a ruler above his court, silent, strategic, sovereign. It is a word that terrifies the weak and defines the strong. To most, control means suppression. To the Machiavellian, it means governance. The difference is vast. Suppression is fear wearing the mask of strength. Governance is awareness transformed into command. The man who suppresses emotion merely hides his storm. The man who governs emotion steers it like wind in his sails. Control begins not with dominance over others, but with mastery over one's inner movements. The subtle tremors of fear, the sharp pulse of anger, the silent erosion of doubt. A mind that cannot control itself will always be controlled. And so, the Machiavellian learns the first law of mastery. To command the external world, one must first command the internal narrative. Every defeat begins as a thought. Every victory, too. Your mind speaks to you in a constant stream of interpretations, judgments, expectations, anxieties. It constructs illusions faster than reality can correct them. It tells you stories of insult where none exist, threats where none appear, limitations where none belong. The Machiavellian mind does not silence these stories. It edits them. It rewrites emotion into information. When fear whispers danger, it asks proof. When anger screams injustice, it asks purpose. When doubt mutters failure, it answers lesson. This is the art of psychological alchemy, turning the lead of emotion into the gold of control. Most people are prisoners of interpretation. They confuse feeling with fact, reaction with reality. They let every wave of emotion toss them into new identities, new opinions, new regrets. The Machiavellian, however, stands still. He watches emotion rise and fall as if it belonged to another being. For in truth, it does. Emotion is not the self. It is the echo of instinct. It can be used but never obeyed. The modern man has forgotten this distinction. He lives as though his emotions are commands from a god. He believes that to feel something deeply is to be something truly. But feeling is not truth. It is motion, and motion can be directed. Machiavelli understood this when he wrote, "It is better to be impetuous than cautious, for fortune is a woman and must be controlled." He did not speak of lust, but of impulse, the wild forces of the mind that must be grasped, not worshipped. Control, therefore, is not cruelty toward oneself. It is clarity. It is the discipline to ask, before every action, does this serve my direction or merely my desire? Every man has emotions. Few have command. And so, the Machiavellian separates himself from the herd, not by suppressing feeling, but by mastering its rhythm. The untouchable mind remains aware of its storms, but never sinks beneath them. It knows that peace is not the absence of emotion, but the authority over it. When you learn to rule your inner world, the outer world begins to bow before you, not out of fear but recognition, for control radiates a quiet power that no chaos can imitate. The Machiavellian does not boast of his strength. He demonstrates it in stillness. He does not argue his worth. He proves it in direction. He does not demand loyalty. He inspires it through composure. Control is not noise. It is gravity, silent, unseen, yet felt by all who come near. The human being is a creature of illusions, and none is more seductive than emotion. For emotion feels like truth, immediate, vivid, undeniable. When we are angry, the world is unjust. When we are afraid, danger is everywhere. When we are in love, eternity is possible, but feeling something does not make it real. It only makes it personal. Emotion is not the reflection of reality. It is the reflection of your interpretation of reality. It is the language through which the subconscious speaks to you, often inaccurately, often destructively. And yet, men worship emotion as if it were divine revelation. The Machiavellian mind does not deny emotion, but it refuses to kneel before it. He knows that emotion is a signal, not a scripture, a tool, not a truth. He listens, but he does not obey. Most of the suffering in human life comes from misreading emotional language. People assume that the intensity of a feeling equals the accuracy of its message. But in truth, emotion only measures attachment, not understanding. The more attached we are to a person, an idea, a comfort, the stronger our emotions around it. But attachment distorts perception. It blinds us to facts and chains us to fantasy. The Machiavellian, therefore, practices detachment not as coldness, but as clarity. He stands one step back from his feelings and observes them like a strategist observing a battlefield. He knows that every emotion, no matter how overwhelming, passes, and that the decisions made in its heat are often those most regretted. This is why the world admires passion, but rewards discipline. For passion ignites, but discipline sustains. Emotion starts the fire, but reason directs the flame. There is a profound strength in emotional invisibility, the ability to feel deeply but reveal nothing. This strength confuses the sentimental man, who equates expression with authenticity. But expression is not authenticity, it is exposure. And exposure in the wrong environment is weakness. Machiavelli understood that every emotion shown is a weapon surrendered. To the manipulative, your anger becomes a lever, your love a chain, your guilt a door. He who displays his heart too openly gives others the map to his ruin. Therefore, concealment is not deception, it is defense. It is the wisdom of knowing that your inner life is sacred territory, not public property. To master emotion is to master time. For emotion always demands immediacy. Act now, speak now, feel now. But the Machiavellian waits. He lets emotion reveal its nature before he responds. He knows that time is the great dissolver of illusions. What feels eternal today will seem trivial tomorrow. The untouchable mind has learned the art of waiting, not with apathy, but with power. Waiting is not weakness. It is strategy. It allows emotion to burn itself out before it burns you. The modern world despises waiting. It celebrates reaction, outrage, speed. Every second must be filled. Every opinion must be voiced. In such a culture, silence becomes rebellion, and that is precisely why the Machiavellian cultivates it. He withdraws into silence not to escape emotion, but to watch it die on its own. He knows that no storm lasts forever, and no feeling is final. This understanding creates a terrifying calm, the kind of calm that unnerves the emotional masses. They cannot understand how one can feel, and yet remain unmoved, how one can care and yet remain composed. But the Machiavellian does not need to prove his depth by display. Depth proves itself in endurance. In the world of illusion, he becomes invisible, not because he hides, but because he does not react. And the world only sees those who react, those who respond with silence, with stillness, with deliberate thought. They disappear from the noise and move freely through it. To be emotionally untouchable is not to be indifferent. It is to be unreachable by manipulation. It is to have felt everything and yet remain the master of what you express. It is to love without losing clarity, to suffer without losing purpose, to win without losing humility. The Machiavellian does not ask the world to understand his silence. He only ensures that his silence is not emptiness, but control. And in that control lies the greatest secret of all. The one who governs his emotions governs his destiny. Emotion can destroy empires. History is filled with kings undone by love, generals ruined by pride, nations shattered by outrage. But emotion can also build when placed under rule. The same passion that destroys can be turned into devotion. The same anger that burns can fuel transformation. The same fear that paralyzes can sharpen vigilance. The Machiavellian does not kill emotion. He trains it like a falcon that hunts on command, but never on impulse. For the untrained mind, emotion is chaos. For the trained mind, it is currency. Every human interaction is a transaction of emotion: attention, respect, guilt, admiration, fear. To understand this is to see through the fabric of social reality. To master it is to rise above it. The Machiavellian knows that emotion governs the herd. They are led not by truth but by feeling. They vote by it, buy by it, hate and love by it. He does not condemn this, he uses it. Not out of cruelty, but out of comprehension. He speaks to emotion without surrendering to it, influences without believing, leads without losing himself. He has learned the sacred balance between empathy and authority, to understand human weakness without becoming weak. In this lies the paradox of the untouchable mind. It feels deeply but acts coldly. It loves without illusion, fights without hatred, grieves without despair. To live this way is not to be less human, but more aware. It is to see that emotion is the servant, not the sovereign, a wild energy that, when mastered, becomes the heartbeat of power. And power, in the truest sense, is not domination over others, but mastery over the forces within. It is the art of standing unmoved in a world that trembles at shadows. So the Machiavellian mind walks among men, smiling, calm, inscrutable. He feels the same storms that others feel, but he chooses when to let them break. For he knows emotion uncontrolled is slavery. Emotion mastered is sovereignty.